This is Talk is Sheep, a podcast by the Wild Sheep Society of British Columbia. Come along as we take conversations that matter to you into the high alpine.
Mr. Hamilton.
Mr. CEO, how's it going?
Yeah, good. It's pouring rain in southern BC here. What's it doing in Prince George?
It ain't raining. It's sunny.
Nice.
A little bit of wispy cloud, but it's nice. It's 3 degrees according to my computer, so that's balmy fall day for the north.
Cool. Well, this is a pretty interesting episode. We bring Mr. Eppele back. Joe, he's such an interesting guy to talk to, and I'll tell you, I love hearing about his hunts. But we had a really important discussion today around managing wolves in British Columbia. Always a controversial subject.
Yeah, no matter what we talk about when it comes to predators and predator management, it gets spicy. People get heated. No matter what side of the fence you're on, the side of the argument you're on, it's just so emotive, and that's why we're having this episode once again, because we're facing the emotional management opportunities again.
So we took this opportunity. There's been a few things happen. First of all, Pack Wild's got Raincoast has got a big campaign going on right now. They October 4th, they sent letters to the government, petition with 500,000 signatures around the wolf call. They're in court right now as we speak on the 27th to 29th, arguing to shut down the aerial wolf call this winter. And then there's a recent letter that came out from the Union of BC chiefs that speaks out against the call as well. So, and the most important thing is this engagement piece going on right now from the government. We provided a link in the show notes. If you don't even listen to the podcast, just go and do that survey right now. It's really important that we weigh in with our thoughts, and they're basically reviewing, what's the public sentiment with regards to the wolf call. Do we support it or are we against it? They want to get a general feel for it. They use that survey for grizzly bears, and they're going to use it again. They could use that again. They don't really tell us how they use the data, but we expect that they'll use that in their decision-making process around the aerial call this winter.
Yeah, it's no surprise that that's what's going to happen, right? We saw it with the grizzly hunt, and we saw it when the paper social license to hunt rolled out last year at about this time. And we started it back now, and we get into that in the podcast and why it's important to engage and what we risk to lose if we don't get better engagement than we traditionally see.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to keep this a very short intro. We got a great podcast here with Joe Eppele. Great support of the society. Fantastic guy. Very interesting dude to listen to. And always love hearing Joe's perspective. But we dive into this wolf issue, what's happening, and just the importance of you guys getting out there and filling out the online survey, which is, again, in the show notes.
Yep. So let's just get it going. We got
do our
surveys to fill out.
Episode 49, Joe Eppele.
If you looked up the words conservation superhero in the dictionary, you would see a picture of our friend Omer from Precision Optics. A tireless donor and supporter of all things wild sheep, Precision Optics, located in Quesnel, British Columbia, truly stands alone in the high alpine. From optics to rifles to outdoor gear and a knowledge that cannot be surpassed, toss in that killer smile and you have a total conservation package. Precision Optics, we are truly thankful for the support you show us every step of the way. Find them online at precisionoptics.net or in Aroma Foods, located just off Highway 97 in Quesnel, BC.
Joe, Steve, gentlemen, how's it going?
Very well. Thanks for having me back.
Steve-O.
Oh, I'm just so sick of this circle conversation we're going to have again. But hey, there's nobody better to have it with than Joe, right?
For sure. And fresh from the backcountry, Joe, I know you've been beating up the bushes there. You kill anything this year? What's going on in the world of hunting and TV and all that fun stuff?
Hunting and TV. Well, in the world of the backcountry, my first few trips were a little slow. I came back pretty light, which was not what I was hoping for, but I made up for some lost time in a hurry on one of my most recent trips. I was up north on a fly-in trip, and day 4 and day 7, I got an elk, a beauty moose, and a beauty elk, respectively. So that was a great trip. And then came back home, and to my wife's surprise, I think I was home for 6 days before I was back out in the bush. God bless her heart. And chasing Callies along the Fraser, and saw a lot of really beautiful 7/8 rams, and stared at a lot of sheep for a lot of hours. And last night, last light, heading back to the boat to run the river back to our camp, and I came across this beautiful muley up there. So we decided to offer him a free ride in the jet boat home with us, and he accepted.
Sweet. Nice. So nice mule deer up there or what?
Yeah, I have to say, along the river, I was really interested to see what was going to happen in some of the sections that burnt this summer.
Yeah.
And I saw it was very promising to see a lot of the green up was really nice. It's still very fresh. It almost looks like a few months into spring up there right now in some of those sections. And the number of does that were in there with fawns and ewes with a lot of lambs running around, I think it was actually like very, very promising for what's to come in the coming years.
How about sheep? What's our recruitment numbers looking like there? Did you see many? Did you see? Well, you said lots of 7/8. Did you see any lambs and ewes or anything like that?
Quite a few, yeah. I saw. I don't think there was any groups I saw that didn't have, the majority of the ewes with lambs.
Is that right?
So that was really promising to see again. I mean, for what I could call an unsuccessful sheep hunt, I think it was very successful and very inspiring. Just seeing, the numbers the way they were. A lot of like some pretty significant bands of sheep. And just the fact that some of those areas that are so greened up, there should be some really, good feed going into the winter. So fingers crossed, if we can keep the predators out of there, it should be a really good year for us.
Well, it's funny. There's 3 tie-ins with what you just talked about there with what we believe in the society. First of all, lamb recruitment. We can talk about that. And I'm just going to segue for half a second because I really want to hear about you. But, for our listeners, we talk about what we're doing on the Fraser River. This is a huge project for the society. Now, I don't know if that was in our treatment area, but in our treatment area, we've treated a number of herds on the Fraser. And in the first year of our project, it's a 9-year project. We started out with 3 years, and we're doing 9 years now. $1.7 million all in is what this project's going to cost. A whole bunch of funding partners on that one. Wild Sheep Society BC has taken a massive role in that. But year 1 of the project, there was after a few months, there was 0 lamb recruitment on the herd that they were basically studying at the time. 0 lamb recruitment. And then there was we did the treatment process, which basically test and remove. We go out in the field, test the animals. If they were MOVI positive, we'd remove them, obviously culled. And the idea is removing MOVI from that herd. In year 2 and 3 surveys were done. And the latest survey was the one herd had 20 ewes for 20 lambs for 41 ewes. So going from 0 in 40-ish to 20 and 41 is just phenomenal. So this project's working, and it's really, really exciting. When you talk to the regional bios, Chris Proctor's the lead. He's a senior wildlife biologist on that. He's through the roof. He said, you just don't see that ever. This is one of the few success stories in conservation that they see. They're doing these projects all the time, and it's usually doom and gloom, and this is one he's absolutely inspired about. So hats off to our membership, and you're a big part of that too, Joe, and what we do and the conservation efforts. It's a real huge success story, and one I loved. I'm telling everybody this, so I apologize, but I love telling this story. It's really, really exciting. So
it's a story that needs to be told as often as possible, and it's funny to hear that, you know, when people get engaged in an effective and appropriate way, that it actually has a positive outcome. If we could convey that to the government, uh, that's very poignant to what we're talking about today.
Yeah, exactly. And the predator stuff. So, okay, back to the sheep. So you guys were on the sheep hunt, and were you up there for the week, or what was the plan on that? How did that look? And did you have a tag, or what was the deal? Did you get an LEH draw on that, or what's the story?
No LEH draw. Honestly, I just wanted to. I love hunting along the Fraser. It's a beautiful part of the country in BC, and just get out and get eyes on some sheep, and you know, just get a good look at the area. So it's me and two buddies. We go up there. We've done it a few years now, and it was a full week. The last week of season is when we made it up this year. Yeah, no LEH is just over the counter tags, and we understand obviously it's a very low success rate when it comes to that, because most of the rams that kind of, the rams that we really wanted to take a good look at, the really nice, big, heavy, mature rams, they're broomed off so far back that they're likely never going to make it. Some of the most promising rams that we saw were, you know, mid-age rams that I think even if they had completed, full curl, they probably would have got the pass. So we're just like, it's just a great hunt to be out on and to get a look at the area. And, as I went back, I also had a mule deer tag in my pocket, and that's a nice added advantage, is when you're up there and you get to enjoy the sheep hunt, but have that kind of consolation prize of coming home with a beautiful mule deer in the back of the truck. That's never a bad trip, and a lot of laughs with good buds too.
Yeah, that's sweet, man. Very cool. So what's on the plan for the rest of the year? What are you doing for hunts? You got some other stuff on the go, or what?
Yeah, I'm always getting out in the bush as long as the wife will let me, every chance she gives me. I've had a very successful start to my season, as I mentioned. I mean, obviously some pretty large animals. Obviously sharing that meat with some of the guys, but my freezer's looking pretty. So I think I'm going to go out and get some gray hairs, chasing blacktail with my bow for a bit, and have some fun doing that. I'd like to get my wife out on a few different trips as well, just to get some time out in the bush, and then some predator hunting this winter. I'm definitely wanting to get out and get another cougar, and some wolf hunting through the winter, and then late season goat is on the menu as well.
Right on, man. That's pretty exciting. Very, very exciting, actually. I have a mule deer draw so I'm pretty excited about that in southern Alberta. So I'm heading out there next week to chase mule deer. So,
oh man, that's a good
pretty
one.
Excited. Yeah, for sure. So looking forward to that. What about you, Steve? You got anything left on the horizon for you this fall?
Predators. Gonna go out for cats. See if I can get a lynx. Still got to get you up here, Joe, for one. Stick and string. But yeah, you got something coming up in December probably that'll throw a wrench into that. But yeah, so yeah, just lynx for me. That's about it.
Well, cool. I'll bring my kid out with us if he's supposed to be arriving mid to late December. So I'll bring my kid out, and I'm sure him crying in the bush
that helps.
Might pull something in. I'll just have to make sure I have a really good eye on him. He's really close to
we have had
everybody before anybody lashes out.
We have had that happen before, where the call gets attacked by hawks or owls or whatever, or the cats come in and they hammer it hard. So yeah, you got to make sure the kid is close.
Yeah, well, we've seen that before for sure. So there's a common theme here. We keep talking predators. So, that's kind of one of the things we thought we'd like to talk about today. A few reasons. Joe, you were involved with Act Now in our campaign there with the Wild Sheep Society BC. We collaborated with the BC Wildlife Federation, brought a bunch of letters to the ledge. Steve, do you want to just give us an overview of what that was, the success of that campaign? And if you were happy with it, I know you kind of led the charge in terms of doing the heavy lifting for the society. Joe was our spokesperson, de facto spokesperson. What are your thoughts on that campaign? Were you happy with the outcome? Maybe give people an overview of what Act Now was, really.
Basically, it was a call to action. We know we're under attack by those that not necessarily agree with hunting, but don't understand it. And it's all an emotionally pushed argument, as you well know. And there was a paper that was put out last year called the Social License to Hunt. And we knew what that meant. In this document, it talked about wolves and cougars and other predators like black bears not being socially acceptable to hunt. But what really got our attention was they named species like moose and elk and bighorn sheep. So as we like to say, it's that slippery slope. So we rallied hunters and those that want to see sound wildlife management in British Columbia to get off their butts and engage. And Joe put out a brilliant video for us that rallied the troops, so to speak. And at the end of the campaign, we had over 50,000 letters that were sent to various forms of government, from MLAs to the premier. And that's pretty bloody good. Could we do better? Yeah, but it's a great start, considering we had less than 1,000 people show up to engage government to save the grizzly hunt. When we can say we had over 50,000 letters, that's great. We've got 110,000 resident hunters. Was everybody that signed it a hunter? No, and that's perfect, because that's not what it's about. It's about wanting to see wildlife managed properly, and here we are again.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So overall, we could have done better. And so now that kind of leads us to where we're at now and what's happening. And there's a bunch of things happening in the media. There's a engagement session going on through the government as well around predator management and that sort of stuff. Steve, do you want to touch a little bit on that, on the engagement survey and what's involved there?
Basically, it's very similar to the Act Now campaign. However, this is an official one that's put out by government. It's called it's circling around the caribou, but we know that, as we've said already, it's the thin edge of the wedge. The government has put it out there. I believe the survey runs till November 15th. We'll hyperlink it in the show notes, where it's asking people's opinion. And right there's a major problem with how that's being done. Opinion should never manage wildlife. It should be science, but it's maybe at best 2-3 minutes of your time. It talks about the success of the wolf management, but then it gets into your personal thoughts about it. And we know we're getting hammered on it. We're getting shit kicked the same way we did with the grizzly hunt. So it's time to step up. And that's what I alluded to right at the beginning as we started recording. This sick of the same conversations, that we shouldn't have to be defending sound wildlife management in British Columbia. But unfortunately, here we are again.
Yeah, for sure.
It seems a little cyclical, and it's funny. Last year when we did have earlier this year, whenever it was, when we did the Act Now campaign, there were so many people that kind of called us a little crazy, saying it wasn't going to grow into anything and we're fear mongers and things like that. Yep. Yet here we are, and things are obviously progressing despite our efforts. And like you mentioned, we went from 1,000 that stood up for the grizzly bear to now 50,000 standing up for what's going on now. So we are gaining a lot of traction. There's a lot of room for improvement. But it just kind of goes to show you that this is going to be a constant ongoing battle, and it is worth putting our time into, because like you said, that survey, when you go in and you start reading the survey, it actually presents some great information. And I would say the questions at the very start of it were promising. It didn't seem like they were pinning everybody against hunters, or that people weren't being singled out. It said, make sure you're not giving any information that's going to really associate you with a group. We want this to be kind of unbiased. And then it's like one of the last questions. It's like, are you a hunter? Yeah. Yes or no? And you're like, oh, great. So mine's going in the garbage. But it's not going to go in the garbage. I just think there's enough room in the survey and the way it's structured. There could be a lot of good that can come out of it. But at the same time, there's enough blue area or gray zone questions where it could be, I think a lot of it's going to be left up to the person that's kind of interpreting the information and the analytics, which is spooky bit.
Well, and I guess for our listeners, and the one thing that we got to keep in mind is they used that survey to shut down the grizzly bear hunt. And they, Steve just mentioned that they quoted that, 4,000 entries, and the majority were against the grizzly bear hunt. So, we know they use this, they're data driven, they're survey driven. So I think it behooves us to take this seriously, and that we as hunters have to write in and express our concerns about it. We know that the anti-hunting side of things is writing in, and they're expressing their concerns. So I think as hunters, we got to get on hunter conservationists. We see the value here for wildlife management and managing predators. we need to jump on this and make sure our voices are heard.
Oh, Steve, you're muted there.
Probably a good thing because I dropped an F-bomb. I'm looking at the official government website right now, and they put up some new graphics. And it talks about understanding caribou declines. There's a picture of a wolf, and they're talking about habitat protection, which is great. Habitat restoration, incredible. Changes to industry practices, we can all get behind that. But you keep going down through and you scroll, and there's a picture of a cougar. So if they're only coming after wolves, why is there a cougar involved in this now? Like, they're throwing more and more things into this as these opinions come in. So I do like how it says predator reduction is an example of a short-term action while we roll out the long-term action. But realistically, who's going to get behind planting a tree versus killing a wolf, right? We know that it's a Band-Aid solution and we know more needs to be done, but it takes 60 to 80 years to grow the proper habitat to save these caribou. It takes the call's been going on a couple of years now, and we've already seen the science is backed that the caribou numbers where this is happening are increasing exponentially. So you can see what's happening here if you take a look at the site. Like I said, we'll put that in the show notes. But yeah, now they're talking about cougars.
Well, and going back to your point, I think we really need to elevate the fact that the survey, I don't think it draws enough attention to the fact that this is just a short-term solution. Currently, this is how they're looking at it. Some of the groups that are coming at us or coming against the predator controller, they're acting like needs to be this big ongoing thing. And don't get me wrong, I'm of the mindset that predator management should be an ongoing thing as long as we're involved in the outdoors. That's something that I don't think will ever completely go away. But maybe to the extent it's happening right now, it won't be necessary after a period of time, but it needs to happen to bridge the gap. And if you look at these, like, let's just break it down and make it very simple right now. If you look at caribou and you look at wolves, caribou are the ones that are backed into a corner right now. Wolves are thriving and they're in no fear. And I think even in some of the documents I've read lately, they talk about how the wolves are endangered or being threatened. And I haven't seen any statistics or analytics showing that the wolves are in threat of being completely eradicated from any area. And then let's look at the success rate of once one of these species, let's just say one of these species has been completely eradicated from a zone, and we then try and reintroduce woodland caribou to a location, what are our success rates there versus if we back a trailer up and let out a few wolves in that area? Which one of those is going to be able to be reintroduced to a location if it does get backed into that corner that far? And realistically, I think everybody on this call and most people listening are going to know what I'm getting at here. The fact is, like, caribou are the side that need our help right now. The wolves, they're going to continue. Look how long they've been around. They're even, I think, in that one letter that was sent in from I can't remember the chief board, but they say, like, let's remember, wolves are a very smart, adaptive, intelligent species. Like, they're going to do well. They're going to come back, even if we do bring their numbers down effectively to bridge the gap for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years until we have this environment or this ecosystem built back up for the caribou to thrive. The wolves are still going to come back in and be successful. But if we let these caribou get to too low of a number, there's groups that are still out there, and biologists are telling us to give up on them because they're just not that effective on their own. So it's pretty clear that one side needs our help and the other side is not actually in threat, like people are trying to tell us.
Looking at some of the numbers here, the 3 herds in the South Peace have increased by a combined 81% since their wolf reduction started. Calf survival has increased by about 25% compared to pre-reduction numbers, and adult female survival has increased by about 13%. That speaks for it right there. It speaks
That's
for it
where
right there that it's effective.
I get a little frustrated because the Raincoast specifically states that the wolf call is not based on science, right? They said there's no science to support it. But then you share that number, 81% increase. That the caribou are now what's their designation federally now, Steve? Is it they're how do they rate them federally? Do you remember?
It depends where, but
Well, yeah, the woodland caribou in northern BC. What's the designation? I can't remember what they're designated, like endangered or something like that.
I want to say blue listed.
Okay, so the federal government stepped in now, and they're managing these herds, and they're counting them. They're doing surveys, so we do have the science to support it. So the statement that the wolf call is not based on science, I think that you can poke a hole in it immediately with regards to that. Joe, back to your statement, 8,000 wolves in BC is what, if you look at the International Wolf Center, they're quoting 8,000 wolves in BC, and that number is increasing. So the numbers are strong. And the other side of it is we know that wolves, they have a high reproduction rate. They come back. They're very resilient. The other side, the Raincoast, their argument is let caribou run its course. It's nature. It's the way it works. But again, our argument is that, well, as a mankind, the one thing we do agree with Raincoast and sort of the anti-wolf call groups is that habitat is the issue, no question.
Absolutely.
But it's a 50-year or 100-year solution. And if we do nothing for 50 years, or we wait 50 years for something to happen, wolves will knock caribou off the landscape for sure, without question.
Here's another statistic, just based off the numbers you presented, saying that there's an estimate of 8,000 wolves in BC. When we look at the typical populations, we understand that obviously under a 4% harvest rate is a very sustainable rate for any species on the landscape. And since 2015, they've only harvested, 1,429 wolves, they predict, from this cull. So if you average that out annually, since then, we're at 237 wolves per year, which is less than 3% of the population. So we're not putting the provincial population of wolves at risk. We're well within a very sustainable level of harvest.
Mm-hmm.
We're just focusing it on certain regions where it's necessary. So even, based on the statistics that everybody uses, we're talking less than 3% of the provincial wolves, like the count, is being harvested, but we're focusing in specific areas to make sure that the caribou can succeed in those areas. So it's not like it's a mass eradication of British Columbia of the wolves. Like, we're using the numbers that some of these other groups are using against us, because that's 1,429 wolves since 2015 that they say have been removed, which is, again, less than 3%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's really a pittance. And the thing is, they're selectively removing them from the areas where there's a risk of extirpation. And we know that caribou in the southern BC no longer exist. They no longer. I don't think there's any caribou in the lower 48. They're all gone now, right? Am I correct in that's the case?
I believe you're correct. Yeah.
But southern BC, I think there was a handful, 5 or 6 that were left. They tried penning, they tried maternal penning,
yeah.
And they basically just walked away from it now. So, we've extirpated them in the lower southern BC, and it's just going to happen in northern BC. But Raincoast is saying that we're happy, just let wolves do their thing, and we'll let them go. It's just natural selection. It's the way the world works. But the problem is, again, our counter argument is that we've created this environment to make the wolves thrive and put the caribou at risk. They're not living in the environment they lived 100 years ago. So as humans, we put them in that, and they haven't had time to evolve and adapt. And as such, they're being wiped off the landscape. So,
no, I agree totally. And like some hard truths that a lot of people aren't going to like to hear is, it's not like just logging. It's not just new roads and areas. We're talking cross-country skiers, backcountry snowmobilers. All of these people are creating areas where they're packing the snow down into the areas where these caribou used to winter, and now creating these perfect highways for wolves to go into locations where they couldn't go before. So, like, I'm not saying that predator control is the only way for us to do this. There is a lot of things and a lot of stuff that needs to fall into place here. But I certainly don't think, okay, there's 6 things that need to be done, but 5 or 4 of them are going to take a really long time, so let's just not get started. That's kind of some of the mindset that comes across when I have conversations with certain individuals about this, which is, like you said, very frustrating to see at the least.
Yeah, I've said it many, many times on various podcasts and conversations. For some reason, wolves and bears and predators they're put on a pedestal, like, and they're seen as magical, mystical beings, while all the other ones, ungulates, are kind of down here. Is it to do with Disney? Is it to do with the books? Like, you go back and you read Farley Mowat's, right? Never Cry Wolf, and it elevates wolves to some sort of celebrity. You saw it with a legal hunter taking a named wolf, which you don't see with any other non-predatory animal, right? You look at Cecil the lion, Takaya the wolf, and you name it, right? It sounds like a dick thing to say, but it's a fundraising opportunity, right? The carnivorous animals, they relate them to your house cat, your dog, right? And what's the first thing they say? What happens if you die? Your cat will eat you, right? Your cat doesn't give a shit about you, right? So you look at the movie. What is it? Frozen. They've got a caribou in that, and I've seen that movie so many times with my daughter. But what do they make that caribou out to be? Just this absolute donut that doesn't know its way out of a wet paper bag type deal. And then you look at Lion King, and it's the magical, mystical beings. It just doesn't make sense. It's a fundraising opportunity for some reason.
There's definitely very effective marketing going on. And yeah, if you go online and you look up images of wolves, everything is done in a way and presented in a way that they look very tame, very calm, very, okay, I can go up and pet that wolf just like I would my dog. I can take it home. And then now when my dog's literally on the dog bed behind me right now. And I look at her, and I guarantee if I spent 5 minutes, I could find a picture of a wolf in the exact same, sleeping pose that she's in. And there's that connection. They pull on those heartstrings. But these groups that are posting these beautiful images of the wolves, you will never see them posting the image of a group of wolves that have a cow elk backed out in the middle of the river, and they're pushing her down the rapids, and just, okay, we're going to kill her by pushing her into the rapids. And if we get her, we get her. If not, that was great practice, guys. Let's go get the next one. Like that side of it isn't depicted evenly and equally. And I think that is a big part of where all of this comes from as well. If they effectively showed all of that, then I don't think we'd be having these same issues right now.
Yeah, they do a good job of marketing Raincoast in particular. They've got the domain savebcwolves.org, and it's another fantastic marketing job and talking about what they're doing. And the thing is I think as the hunting conservation community, we got to start taking them a bit more seriously, right? Like, and this issue more seriously. I think a lot of people are dismissive of it. And we've talked about the slippery slope and a whole bunch of other things, but just look at what they've managed to do. On October 4th, they went to the legislature like we did. We had our Act Now campaign. We showed up with, X amount of letters, tens of thousands. They showed up with 500,000 signatures on a petition. So how can we not take that seriously, for starters? And how can the hunter conservationists be dismissive? Their new goal is 1 million signatures, and they're going to get it at some point. Is it going to be a year or 6 months or 10 years? I don't know, but they're going to work towards it. And right now, as we speak, in the BC courts, Pacific Wild has a court case challenging the legality of the BC wolf hunt. And they did shut it down before. They had not the hunt, it was the cull and the provincial management program to manage predators. They did it last winter, I think it was, and they're back there arguing again right now as we speak, the 27th to the 29th. So they're a formidable force, and we have to take them seriously. It scares me to think that they can get 500,000 signatures and we're showing up with 50,000, right?
No, it's extremely scary, but I think a big part of it comes down to, even some of the arguments that are out there right now. It's very clear that people are just reading headlines and then getting emotionally provoked by just a quick headline. And when we look at it, which side of this story can effectively be told in a headline? With like our side of the story, we as hunters and as conservationists, our story, it cannot be told in one headline. We have the burden of carrying and portraying the whole story. And we can't do that. So we actually have to come up with a way to get people's attention and keep people's attention long enough to convey all of this information. And we have to mind our P's and Q's, because unlike the other side, there are so many people fact checking everything we say. So we are completely under a microscope, and we have to somehow captivate people's attention without lying, because that's just going to be more ammo for them. So we have to tell the truth. We don't have, our story cannot be told in one sentence. And I think that's a big issue for us, is we need to be able to captivate people's attention long enough to convey all of this information. And if people don't stick around long enough to hear the whole story, it's really easy to get pulled the other way, because it's just like, hey, if you don't kill a wolf, everything's going to be great and everybody's going to be happy. Well, but that's not the case.
Well, visually, they win with the picture, right? You put on that pretty fluffy wolf or a couple of pups on the TV, and people are automatic or on their computer screen, and they're just sitting there scrolling, and that tells the story right there. Do you want this animal to die, right? Can we do it on the other side? Can we do that? First of all, a caribou is not near as charismatic as a wolf is, right? So even putting a picture of a caribou up and saying, do you want this animal to die, right? And then but then their counter argument is they put a picture up of a wolf and say, well, this animal has to die for that to happen, right? It's a hard argument to win unless we can have the long conversation like we do here.
I think there is an opportunity, like you mentioned right now, if we do just post caribou and say, do you want this animal to die? Because I do agree that they're not as charismatic and not as relatable to, a household pet. But I do think there is a lot of nostalgia that's associated with caribou, with reindeer, with being Canadian and having these majestic animals out there, and the fact that if we don't act soon, this will be something that's not around for generations to come. Maybe there is an opportunity there to help cause some of those groups in the middle ground, one way or the other, but I don't think it's going to be an easy battle either way. Those people will go and click yes to both petitions.
No, absolutely. It's a tough one, and I think that's what it boils down to, right? It's selective marketing. They're going to show the picture that suits an agenda. Are they telling the truth that wolves are beautiful? Oh, hell yeah. Any hunter will tell you the same thing. They're some of the coolest animals you'll ever see on the landscape. Are they vicious killers? Yeah. Are they a part of nature that we want to see wiped out? Absolutely. We don't want them wiped out. We want to see them there. And that, I think that's the disconnect is it's not hard to go online and see somebody saying, smoke a pack a day, kill them all. The only good wolf is a dead wolf. And those are the little screenshots that they're used against us. As hunter conservationists, we know there's a place on the landscape for wolves, for grizzly bears, for black bears, for predators in general. We don't want to see an extirpation or an extinction of a species. We want to see balance, and that's it.
Yeah, we want to see a diverse landscape. Nobody that truly cares about wildlife, or no hunter that deserves the title conservationist, would ever agree with the mindset that wolves should be completely removed from the landscape, in my opinion. They are very important. And I think if the wolves were actually backed into a corner where they were being threatened and they were being backed into the corner by another predator, we would be on this podcast right now talking about the fact that we need to balance that fight out by reducing those other predators. Like, we're sitting here saying, remove emotion from this decision right now, black and white. Like, maybe we need to just remove the titles completely and not talk about caribou versus wolves. We're just talking about if side A is going against side B, and side B is the one that historically has the hardest time to kind of gain traction in a region, we need to get behind them, and don't look at the pictures. Don't look at these, the different, the really fancy marketing that each side is doing. And let's just look at the numbers and the statistics and how we're impacting them as a human population, how we are negatively impacting this battle and creating a fight that is completely tilted in one direction. That's what needs to happen here. Because I guarantee, from my personal mindset, and I will let you guys speak to it. I don't want to speak for you, but if wolves were truly backed into the corner and they came and said, you know what, the grizzly population in BC has somehow got to a level so high that the wolves are going to be eradicated, like, I would be sitting here going, okay, let's start talking about grizz. Or if the caribou somehow started eating wolves, I would be sitting here saying, let's bring down the caribou number, because the wolves don't get our help. right? If the caribou were doing something to the environment and they were thriving so strongly that they were reducing the population of wolves to the point where they were being threatened, I would be sitting here saying, okay, let's talk about doing a caribou cull. It's an unbiased position, but people think because caribou are this beautiful animal and hunters like to go after them, that all of a sudden our opinion is irrelevant because it's completely biased. And I think that's an unfair argument, but a lot of people get blinded and you just take that as fact. But that's why for me, when I was filling out that government survey, it really upset me towards the end, where they said, because every other question, it was like check multiple boxes. If you associate yourself with any of these groups, you can check multiple boxes. Then you get to this one and it says, are you, do you enjoy skiing? Do you enjoy hiking? Do you enjoy camping? Do you enjoy which one of these groups do you associate with? And one is just hunting, and you can only check one. And at that point, that was frustrating to me, because on every other time when you got those types of questions, you could check multiple boxes. So all of a sudden at that point, we're being forced into this silo. Whereas I think every person who hunts has so much more interest in the outdoors than just my ability to go out and harvest an animal. That's an unfair corner, I think, for us to be backed into.
Yeah, well said, Joe. And yeah, I think that we want to see a diverse landscape. We want to see, one of my favorite things when I'm out in the wild, probably my favorite thing to see is a grizzly bear. No matter what I'm hunting, I see a grizzly bear. To me, that I come home from that trip, it's the most amazing thing. But wolf is right up at the top there as well. I just don't want to see a pack of them taking down every single living thing. Or you go out on a hunt where you've hunted for years and there's not a single ungulate on there because there's wolf tracks everywhere. So it's all about the balance. And I think you're right. I think, as hunters, we need, we recognize that we're not advocating for, the extirpation of wolves. We just want there to be balance, really, is the main thing we're advocating for. So, okay, let's segue now. You talked about this, Steve, about smoke a pack a day, all this sort of stuff, and social license around hunters. And okay, so October 25th, for those of you who are listening that maybe don't know, the Union of BC Chiefs sent a letter to Katrine Conroy, Ministry of Flynn Rowe, basically saying that they supported Rain Coast and they were against the wolf cull, that they wanted the government to cease and desist from managing wolves. Now, interesting enough, the Union of BC Chiefs doesn't represent the areas where this cull is going on. They represent, the greater collective, but they don't specifically necessarily represent that area. And interesting, there are certainly First Nations that do support the cull. So this is not First Nations stance on managing wolves. It's a greater stance from a higher body. But one of the things in that letter, it says wolf whacking. They actually specifically mention that. So these wolf whacking contests, and we've seen that stuff go on. Last year, there was some contests. I'm not going to single any groups out or anything, but we've seen these. So, let's talk a little bit about social license. And Joe, you touched on it as hunters. Some of the stuff we say and do and is probably not the best if we're looking for support from the non-hunting public that don't understand what we're doing. Yeah, internally we know, what we're trying to say, but the problem is that our words get co-opted and used against us. So let's talk about social license and hunters and these wolf whacking contests, that sort of thing, and how bad they really are for our reputation.
Where do we start?
That's a big conversation. How much time do we have here?
Yeah, I saw that post. I know the one you're talking about, where it actually called it a wolf whacking contest, predator whacking contest. And I'm like, holy shit, that is going to be used against us. And here we are a couple of years later, it's being used in official documents against us. I get
Steve,
the emotion.
Steve, let me read it just because it's so impactful.
Sure.
And then sorry to cut you off, but I want to set the context. So it's an October 25th letter. It's from the Union of British Columbia Indian Chiefs, and it's addressed to Honorable Katrine Conroy, Minister of Forest Lands and Natural Resources. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but what it does say is the government's priority should be securing and protecting enough habitat for a viable caribou population, not the senseless slaughtering of wolves that has since opened the floodgates to wolf whacking tournaments that your government turned a blind eye to. The UBCIC wrote to our government on April 8th, wrote to your government on April 8th, 2019, expressing extreme condemnation and horror at the wolf whacking and predator tournaments in the interior that has led to the gratuitous and ruthless slaughter of wolves. So that's what we're up against. Now we've got First Nations, the Union of BC Indian Chiefs coming out with a letter like that. That's pretty damning, to be honest.
When you brought this topic up, you mentioned just the importance of wording alone, and that's the whole conversation we're getting into right now. And what you just read, I think, depicts that in a huge way, because based on some of the wording of what you just said, I 100% agree. Like, I am against the senseless slaughter of animals, and that's the wording they use in there. Anybody reading that, like, I am against the senseless slaughter, yeah, 100%, I'm on side with that. Yep. But that's not what we're talking about right now. So they're using this to take our conversation outside of the context of what's supposed to be being discussed right now. Because we're not discussing the senseless slaughter. They are completely devaluing like all of the information, statistics that have gone into making these decisions, that have gone into supporting this wolf call. Even if you go on and you look at the predator reduction survey, when it opens up, it specifically states that this is a short-term bridge. We need to, control the populations while we get these other initiatives in order. We're not saying this is the end all be all. We are using this. So it's not a senseless slaughter right there. It's alluding to the fact that there is purpose behind this. So the word senseless should be taken out of that document right away. So like going back to how much weight can be placed on specific words, it's huge. And especially in modern day society where tweets, Instagram, Facebook posts, everything, once they're put out there, they're on the internet and they will come back like for years and years and years. Like, it will never go away. Someone will always dig this information up. And we as hunters need to take on a burden of really monitoring what we're saying. I think I talked about it last time, or I know I've discussed it with you guys. It goes back to my days as a pro athlete. And we were trained on the difference between locker room talk and post-game interviews. There's a very big difference. And I'll tell you right now, if you've ever watched an NFL game and a post-game interview and that quarterback's up there saying, you know what, we played the best game. My guys put their best effort out there. And it was nobody's fault. The other team didn't play well. We beat ourselves. If you think that's the conversation that happens in the locker room at halftime or after a game, you are so wrong. Let me tell you, the fights, the discussions, everything happens. But we understand as a team, to stand a chance throughout the season or in any argument or anything, we need to come together. We need to control our dialogue when we're in the public eye. And that's what shows unity. It shows like a unified front, and it makes no member of that group feel pushed to the side. And we are able to then put together a good, strong, unified front. And people are like, okay, yeah, you know what? This team's got a good locker room. They do have a chance. And you'll get behind that team. Us as hunters, we have the burden of properly communicating what's going on. We need to check each other. If somebody's like your buddy wants to post something and say something like wolf whacking, whatever it is, in a moment after somebody takes a wolf or does something, you might feel really excited because, hey, you might be doing it for all the right reasons, but what you're doing could be completely devalidated or invalidated, I should say, by one word in your post, by one word in a text, by one word in a tweet, and everything else could be great. Your reasoning behind it. You could know that you've been hunting an area for 15, 20 years, and in the recent, 5-10 years, you've seen a decline of the ungulates, but a huge surge in the wolf population. So when you finally take a wolf out of there, you're so frustrated and mad at that wolf because of everything it's done. If you post and you don't somehow build those previous 15 years of frustration into that post, and you just quickly throw up, wolf whacking, successful wolf whacking, guess what? Nobody else out there knows what you did. And it portrays us in a very, very negative light.
Exactly,
sorry for being
Joe.
so long-winded.
No, that's perfect. Like I just did a quick search of it here, and it says a petition to end hunting contests in Canada has gained more than 60,000 signatures after being posted online 4 weeks ago. So in 4 weeks, they were able to rally more than we could in 3 months. just because of the phrasing.
Well, yeah, look at how sexy you can make one headline versus another headline. And we're like human population, we're a bunch of goldfish nowadays. We're so used to immediate information. You can gain the information from looking at a picture. You can gain the information from reading one sentence. Only one side of this argument can be told in one image or one sentence.
So, what do you say to our the guys and girls in our community that forever have posted grip and grins, or they've taken grip and grins and they've shared it and whatever, and we can sort of get away now with tasteful grip and grins and telling the story, and there's some people that do a fantastic job. You guys are two examples that do a great job. But for those people that have the tongue hanging out, they got blood and all this stuff, and their argument is, "Hey, I'm a hunter. I have a right to do that." What's our counter argument for that? And how do we, hunters? I know some hunters feel they have a right to do that. They're like, "No, it's my right. I'm a hunter, and I can do whatever I want." What's our counter argument to that? And I'm on side with you guys, but what's our counter argument to those people?
Sit back and look what's going on right now because of posts and pictures like that. The reason we're fighting and we're talking about a wolf whacking contest is because of a post exactly like that. Here we are a couple years later, still circling. We're defending lawful and ethical and science-based management because of emotionally charged wording and emotionally charged pictures. As Joe said, would they ever stick around and throw out a picture of an ungulate getting chased into a river? No, that doesn't sell. It goes against their narrative. And we need to play their game, right? And stop being our own worst enemies. I know there's a lot of hunters out there that absolutely hate that it's hunters against hunters, and they hate the phrasing, but that's exactly what it is. When you've got a hunter here and a hunter there, we all want the same thing. We want sustainable wildlife management. We need to come onto the same path to get there and realize what we're doing is going to stick around forever. Once it's online, as they say, it's never going away. So just think about what you're posting. Take 5 seconds and tuck that tongue back in. Take 10 seconds to wipe a little bit of blood off. If there's a hole that's a little too gory, think about where you're going to be posting that. Show it to your buddies and talk about how that animal dropped in its tracks and it was a quick, clean death. Don't talk about how you had to chase it for 2.5 kilometers and put 5 or 6 more shots into it. Just be very, very careful, because we all struggle, or we all strive to give a quick and honorable death to that animal. Treat the animal the way it deserves to be treated, as a freezer filler, right? And something that gave its life so you can continue yours.
Yeah, I think it's a great. Steve, you had some really good points in there, and Kyle, I think it's a great question that I don't think there's a simple answer to it. I think that is a question that we need to, us as hunters, we really need to take a deep dive and look inward and come up with the best answers to that question. I don't feel that I'm in a position where I can speak 100% and say this is what needs to be done, because I'm sure I myself make a lot of mistakes in my posts from time to time. I've had people reach out and let me know somehow I've offended them, and I will try and have a conversation with them and let them know I appreciate the fact that they came to me rather than just condemning me right away. But our posts, sometimes hunting is a very real, raw, and in your face activity. It's a very it's an unbashful way of getting your food. It's what happens, and there are some very tough things that go on that a lot of people don't like to see. So we as hunters, we do have the burden again of reading the room, understanding who your audience is and who you're handing ammunition and information to. If you are the type of person that absolutely needs to post the gory stuff, use the wrong phrases, do everything, make your profile private and only let your buddies on it, or have a WhatsApp group that you can send information to your buddies. But just throwing it out there and rubbing everybody's noses in it isn't always the right approach. Is it something that used to be able to be done? Sure. But guess what? Before social media, hunters could say and do whatever they wanted, but that's because most of the conversations were happening in somebody's shop. It was never done on such a widely accessible platform as it is now. even in the hunting shows, most stuff was portrayed in a very tasteful way. Now all of a sudden, everybody has access to huge audiences, and a lot of people just aren't, putting enough weight on it and understanding that they do have that impact. And this 0.001% of our community can be painted in a light where they're made to represent our entire population of hunters, which is not true, because the majority of people do go out of their way to try and present hunting in a positive light, talk about the ethicality of it, talking about the full process and everything that does go into it. But again, it goes back to one word in one post that can completely ruin everything. So yeah, it's a very good question. It's one that I think everybody needs to ask themselves before they post. But it's frustrating that we do have to consider that, and that people won't. The other side of it won't take a second to put themselves in our shoes and try and give us the benefit of the doubt. They want to automatically attack us. So it's frustrating we're put into that situation, but we need to understand that we are in that situation.
Yeah, well said, Joe. Okay, I think we've banged that on the head a bit, but what I'd like to do is just circle back to the importance now of this survey. So we know the government is driven by these surveys. They've cited that with the grizzly bear. We do see this call. It's been a 5-year call. They started in 2015. They did 5 years, and my understanding from what I've read, it's another 5-year renewal. So they've gone through the 5-year cycle. We've seen positive stats that are show that the call has been effective, that we've seen an increase in caribou numbers. We don't argue that the habitat piece is even more impactful, and that we should be doing that. But aside from that, the short-term solution is predator management. So this engagement survey is ongoing. Guys, I want to give your best argument of why people need to get out there and fill out that survey. I want to hear a plea from the both of you.
Have you seen the size of Joe? If you don't, we're sending him out. Basically, for me, if you want to continue to hunt 5-10 years down the road, if you want your grandkids to continue to hunt, we need to be proactive now. We saw it 4 short years ago with the grizzly hunt. They put it out to public engagement. They said, hey, give us your opinion on if you think the grizzly hunt should continue, and it is gone. We've seen them take 1 mule deer away for a bag limit for a year. It's gone. That ain't coming back. We're watching them try to put in LEH for sheep in the Kootenays. We know if that goes through, it's gone. They need to start managing without effect. Pulling the hunting regulation lever, to be blunt, right? Stop managing hunters, manage habitat, manage predators, and you guys need to get out there and engage. We're going to lose it.
Sure. Now you hand the mic to me. You make your plea name on everything, and then okay, Joe, you carry on. Like, thanks. On my end, Kyle, based on what you just said, the initial call was put in place for 15 years. Right now, it's not like we're asking for another 15 years. We're not asking for this to be an indefinite, call put in place. We're talking about another 5 years to extend, to give these other initiatives time to take root. You get that one section in the survey where you get to put these 8 things in place and talk about what you think is most important. I talked about the fact that obviously their environment, why am I drawing a blank right now on the word, but recreating their environment is far more important than the cull. But the cull is an essential piece to this puzzle. And when it comes down to it, the one line that I put even in the little bracket at the end where it says any additional comments, I just put in there, the reason we need this right now and the reason people need to get involved is because our caribou are more important than people's feelings. And that's it.
Nice.
So we need to remove the faces and the marketing images from these drives and just talk about species A and species B and present the statistics and tell the story that way. Maybe people will understand at that point.
Well said, Joe. So back to act now, science-based wildlife management. Use it, be data-driven, use the information. What's the best for the landscape? We want a diverse landscape. We don't want millions of wolves roaming and no ungulates. We want very diverse species on the landscape. And this is a solution. And the interesting thing is the government's giving us a chance to speak. So, we always complain to government this, the government that. Well, this is our one chance where we can actually voice our opinion and stand up for what we believe in. And they're going to use this data. They're going to, and do they follow it exactly? I don't know. Maybe there's something else that, they're using as well. But we do know they cited the grizzly bear. So, there is a case to be made that they're going to use this data either for or against us. So, we need to get out and do our part as hunter conservationists and make sure that our voice is heard. So I think we can't reiterate enough. If you take nothing away from this podcast, you need to go out and do your part in this engagement survey, which is in the show notes. So.
And just to add to that a little bit, of the 50,000 people that were involved in our Act Now campaign, a lot of people were talking about the fact they were frustrated because they were getting a canned response to their emails that they sent in from the government officials saying, I don't feel like I'm actually getting through. The government has offered us a direct line of communication here. Whether or not they will completely look at it in its entirety, we can't say. But right now we are being offered a direct line of communication. So for at least those 50,000 people that got involved in the Act Now campaign, here is a chance to go in and we have that direct line of communication. Let's take advantage of it.
Well said, Joe. Gents, we've taken enough of your time for today. I think we've done a pretty good job of providing some background of where we're at and why we're there, what we need to do if we feel strongly about this and about our future and about managing species in British Columbia. So with that, we'll kind of wrap it up here. I want to wish you guys a fantastic fall. I hope to see some pretty cool hunts on TV this year from you, Joe. I'm pretty excited about that, and wish you guys, Joe, wish you a great fall, and really appreciate from the society just everything that you do, not just for the society, just for our community, the stories you tell, the way you tell them. Just really grateful for it, and appreciate that you taking the time to talk to us again today.
Thank you, Kyle and Steve. I really appreciate your kind words and just the support from your end, and just honestly, you guys offering me the ability to get active with a group that does so much for us hunters as a community. To be perfectly honest, I'm just honored to be a part of what you guys do on any level. So anytime you have an opportunity, reach out. I can't promise that I'll always be available, but if I am available, I am more than happy to get involved. You guys do a lot of amazing work that enables us, that speaks for our passions, and most people aren't in a position to do as much as you guys do. And I know that both of you are extremely individual on a daily basis, and you put so much time into this. For most of our listeners, they probably don't understand how much time and effort you guys are constantly investing. So just on my behalf and all of our listeners' behalf, thank you guys so much for putting in your time and giving so much back selflessly.
Very cool, Joe. Appreciate it. And awesome. Thanks again for coming on the show.